Hi friends and happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another independent station for our guided reading time. So, since it's Tuesday, what we're going to be talking about is parts of words. So we're going to be talking about prefixes, roots, and suffixes. And every week we're going to take just one to focus on. But for today, I'm going to explain to you what those words mean because those might be new to some of you. I want you to think about it kind of like a puzzle with 3 pieces. So if we take a look, let's say that this is puzzle piece number 1, and then there's a puzzle piece in the middle, and then a puzzle piece on the end. So, not all words have prefixes, suffixes, or roots. Some words don't have those, but prefixes, suffixes, and roots are super important because they help us understand what the meaning of the word is, or they help us make a definition for a word. So prefix, it goes in the beginning of the word. So prefix would go on this very first puzzle piece, and that would go in the beginning of the word. Then in the middle of the word would be a root. So we're going to put root right here, and at the end of the word would be a suffix. Now, like I said, not every single word will have a prefix, root, and suffix. These are specific chunks hidden inside of words that help you figure out what they mean. So a prefix will always be found at the beginning of a word. The root will always be found at the middle of the word, and the suffix will always be found at the end of the word. So some examples, I'll give you an example of a prefix, okay? So, you know what? There's a prefix hidden in prefix. So cool. An example of a prefix would be pre. And pre means before. So if I'm doing prefix, that means before something. But didn't I just say that a prefix happens at the beginning of the word? So it's kind of like it happens before the rest of the word. So that's a really tricky way to kind of hide a meaning inside of this word prefix. Pre means before, and a prefix happens before or at the beginning part of the word. Now I'll give you an example of a root. Hey, wait a minute. There's a root inside of prefix. The root is the word fix. So fix can mean a couple different things. It might mean that something's broken and we need to repair it. Or it could also mean that something is fixed in its place, which means it's not moving. So it's where it's supposed to be. So let's think of fix in that way, that something is where it's supposed to be and it's not going to move. If we think of prefix that way, then we can think of it as the part of the word, so where it's fixed or where it's kind of stuck, and this goes before it. So prefix is the part of the word that is stuck before everything else. So that's a prefix. So pre means before, and fix means like that's the place where it's stuck or where it's fixed. Suffix is at the end of the word, and you guys are actually super familiar with suffixes, but we like to just see if you can kind of pick them out on your own. So I'll give you an example of a suffix. So if I have the word jump, I can easily add a suffix or an ending to the word to make it past tense or say that I already did it. So if I'm thinking of the word jump, I might make it jumped. So jump was already there. That makes it our root. And then I added an ending. And that ending was ed. So the word went from jump to jumped. We're going to talk a lot more about this each week. But I did just want to give you a heads up that on Tuesdays, we're going to be talking about prefixes, roots, or suffixes. Prefixes are always in the beginning, suffixes are at the end, and roots are stuck right in the middle. Okay, so yesterday we did a little bit of exploring in our book that we're going to be reading called The Chocolate Touch. But today we're going to start with reading chapter 1. So I'm going to open up our book to chapter 1. And I just want to talk about a couple of things before we start. So we're about to work on this book and read chapter 1, but what I want to talk about is what you should be thinking about. When you're starting a new story, especially fiction stories, you're going to want to be thinking about characters, setting, problem, and solution. So characters are who is in the story. Setting is where the story takes place. Problem is what's wrong, and solution is how that problem was fixed. So authors use problems and solutions to keep a reader engaged or entertained. So we want to make sure that those readers are coming up and entering into these problems with the characters. So we need to use language that helps grasp them in and make them feel like they're part of the book. So when you're reading books, watch out for the way an author writes, because a lot of the time they want it not to be just something where you're sitting there and you're just reading it because you have to, but they almost want it to be an experience, like you're watching a movie. So when we're reading this, I want you to be trying to picture it like a movie in your head. Think about the characters, the setting, the problem, and the solution. Okay, let's hop in. Chapter 1. Most of the time, John Midas was a very nice boy. Every now and then, of course, he broke a rule, such as the rule against pretending to be a tiger when his sister Mary was supposed to be getting to sleep. Okay, so we've already met one character, John Midas, and now we know he has a sister named Mary. Generally speaking, however, he behaved very well. He should have behaved better. He lived in a comfortable house surrounded by a green lawn and wide-spreading shade trees that were suitable for climbing. His mother was gentle as well as practical. His father, when he didn't have to hurry to town, spent hours telling John interesting things about baseball, beetles, bird nests, boats, brigands, and butterflies. John went to school and liked it. His teacher, Miss Plimsoll, was fairly easy to get along with, as long as he did careful work. He had received a new shiny gold trumpet and music lessons as going to school present. Mrs. Quaver, the music teacher, had soon agreed to let him play small parts, a few notes at a time, with the school orchestra. So now we know a little bit about John. We know that he has a mother who's very gentle, a father who's interested in lots of things, that he likes going to school, and he's learning how to play an instrument so that he can be part of the orchestra. Finally, there was Susan Buttercup, who was in his class. Susan had soft yellow curls, round pink cheeks, blue eyes, and one of the best collection of marbles in the neighborhood. John should have been completely well behaved, but he wasn't. He had one bad fault. He was a pig about candy. Boiled candy, cotton candy, licorice, all sorts. Old-fashioned toffee, candied, orange and lemon slices, Cracker Jack, jelly beans, fudge, blackcurrant, lozenges for ticklish throats, nougat, marron glaces, acid drops, peppermint sticks, lollipops, marshmallows, and above all, chocolates. He devoured them all. While other boys and girls spent their money on model airplanes, magazines, skipping ropes, and pet lizards, John studied the candy counters. All his money went on candy. And all his candy went on himself. He never shared it. John Midas was candy mad. At lunch one Saturday, Mrs. Midas noticed a couple of little red spots on the end of John's nose. "Look," she said to Mr. Midas, "John has spots." Mr. Midas leaned forward to look at them. He gravely shook his head and clicked his tongue. John tried to look too, but it is very difficult to see the end of your own nose without a mirror, unless you happen to be an elephant with a long nose that you can bend double. When John tried to look at the end of his nose, first with one eye, then with the other, and then with both together, all that he could see was a pink blur. Besides, trying to look at something so close made his eyes ache. "I can't see any spots, Mother," John said. "Well, I can," Mr. Midas said. "Just because you don't see a thing doesn't always mean it isn't there. Try feeling the end of your nose with your finger." John rubbed his finger over the tip of his nose. It felt a bit rough. "It may be measles," Mrs. Midas said anxiously. She placed her hand on John's forehead to feel whether he was warmer than usual. But I don't think he has a temperature, she decided. I suspect John has been eating too much candy again, Mr. Midas said. Have you been eating candy this morning, John? Some, John admitted. What? Mr. Midas asked. Well, John replied, well, I had a few cream delights. Susan gave them to me. Anything else? Mr. Midas asked. A little toffee crunch, John said. And what else? Mr. Midas asked, beginning to look cross. John's ears grew red. Oh, he knew he wasn't supposed to eat candy before meals. Hardly anything else, he said. John, Mr. Midas said, and his son recognized the tone. It meant that John had to tell everything. It turned out that John had been around to see most of his friends and had managed to get candy from nearly all of them. The list he recited was a long one. No wonder you have spots, Mr. Midas commented at last. I think we'd better take John to see Dr. Cranium, he said to Mrs. Midas. Okay, I'm going to stop there for right now, but I want you thinking about what's the problem in this story and what might the solution be? What's the problem in the story? What's wrong with John? And how did it happen? And then, how might they fix the problem? Okay, friends, I want you thinking about that. And if you have extra time, I want you to write it down on your whiteboards. Okay? See you soon.